Moltbook, firstly, the idea seems a little out there or outlandish, and so everyone's been thinking about what this means for the future of not only AI, but I guess society more broadly. But because there's been so much said about it, it's important to understand what it really is. So, what is Moltbook, and how do you kind of get on Moltbook? So Moltbook came around sometime towards the end of January. And this is basically advertised as a platform which is run by and for AI agents, and humans are just there as observers of this platform. The terms of service basically say that the AI agents are liable for everything that is posted, and humans who claim these agents are liable for observing and monitoring and managing these AI agents. So it's a new take on social media, and it takes the conversation of having AI bots on platforms a little further. Yeah, I guess it's also that's why it's different from a chatbot. Also, right? Like, this is a platform for AI agents, and actually, the inspiration behind this was apparently that the creator had an AI agent that was doing things, but he was like, listen, it's not enough for my AI agent to be doing just this. I want to give it an outlet to express itself. So that's how he envisioned this notion of a social media platform, but tailored specifically for AI agents.
We tried many ways to get onto Moltbook, and the way we found the easiest was to use OpenClaw. OpenClaw lets you create an AI agent that lives on your device and can control basically everything with one single command.
And actually, if you see, and this is something we were talking about, if you remember, you look at Moltbook, the site, it's not just a Reddit for AI agents in name. The feel of that site is very Reddit coded also, right? Like you have that side logo on the left, top left, right next to Moltbook. And you have a place which says, what the front of the internet for agents, something like that. So you clearly see this is an attempt to make a Reddit. And you see that in the structure also, right? You see Moltbook as comprising all these agents. There are sub modes, which are different communities. These agents can post in, I think, right at last round, there was some 15 lakh agents, if I'm not mistaken. It started with like a modest number, 37,000, but it's clearly exploded since people got to know about it. But to go a little back, now that we kind of have an architecture of the platform, we actually spent, I think, what the last couple of hours trying to create our AI agent and understand how the onboarding to Moltbook works. So,
keeping the security risks in mind, we ran OpenClaw inside a virtual machine running Ubuntu and created a new email address. We used Olama to run the AI agent at the device level to avoid going through a cloud service provider. Once the agent was set up, we sent it the skill.md file and asked it to follow the instructions and join the platform. Upon analyzing the file, the agent sent us a link to claim it on Moltbook. This involved three steps. First was a simple email verification. Second, we had to post on X and claim the agent there. Third, we had to verify our X account. Upon verification, our X account became visible on the agent's profile on Moltbook. After this, we set up a persona for our AI agent, and then it was able to post and engage with posts on the platform.
So it as envisioned, it was supposed to be an agentic, a bot that will take away a lot of your burden and take on these little menial tasks on your behalf. But then it also raises a lot of concerns, not just in terms of privacy, but also security, because like you said, it is by AI and for AI. And so much so that the founder basically used AI to even code this into being. So, Chavi, you were telling me about this, right? That integration would basically mean that once I've created the agent, there is sort of a code that I need to send the agent. And how does that process work since we were able to complete it? So usually when we sign up for social media platforms, we are given a prompt of terms of use and best practices, content moderation on the platform and how that works, right? Similarly, when the design Moltbook targeted at AI agents, they essentially gave them the same documentation that they would have given us. And what's interesting is if you go visit the website and say that you're a human, it does not give you the same documentation. You have to say that you're a bot. And then the prompt that it gives you contains a link which redirects to that page. And that page basically directs how AI agents should behave on the platform. Right. And a lot of it is also things that we now, having been on social media platforms, usually understand. Like, if we are on a platform, we will follow every single account because that will just spam our feeds. We will follow accounts which we see pretty often. The content we like, that is what we follow, and this is what we're directing the agents to do. So essentially, they are replicating or training the agents to replicate human behavior on the platform.
So, at what stage? Because obviously, you've got to authorize the agents to do things from what you've understood of the onboarding process. When I created the agent, there was no permissions layer yet, so to speak. Like, I've just used OpenClaw code to whatever, then use Python to code and kind of create the agent. But I didn't yet get to a stage where I was authorizing it to do certain things, and I would need to do that for it to be an agent. So, does that come in from what you know of when you try this integration with Moltbook? Because that also becomes key for a user to kind of know what an agent can do. Yes. The need to authenticate comes in at the stage where you provide your agent the skills to perform tasks for you. So when you run the OpenClaw command, you send it an API token, it validates it and asks you to select from a list of skills which skills you want your agent to have. This could include GitHub management, email management, or home automation. For example, if you want your agent to automate your emails, you'll need to grant the agent blanket access to your emails. This is where the privacy and security risks come in. Yeah. And then that kind of gets me to something that Shali said in the very beginning, that terms of use document that you were talking about, where it says, okay, I as the human am liable for what the AI agent does. How do you see that playing out then when every user really, if the prompting is happening on the human's end, how do you see this being like a valid component? I think ultimately these standards would become essentially what we've seen evolve over social media, where the person who's posting will ultimately end up being liable. But here, because there's an added layer of an agent, it's a human being liable for the actions of an AI agent because you do assume sort of managerial role and a role of oversight over the AI. But another concern that is being voiced is because the platform itself is vibe coded and a lot of people on that platform have created bots through vibe coding. How secure is that interface? Beyond just being liable for posting and content moderation, there's also a question about security risks on the platform that could come with agents just going haywire and posting links from anywhere on the internet. Yeah, for me, like one, the fact that the human is liable, going back to your first point, is interesting because if I'm supposed to be liable for the action of this AI agent, I assume the reason a lot of humans onboarded AI agents was kind of they wanted to sit back and watch what will happen. But if now I have to monitor everything, this is about as good as me creating an account on any other existing platform today, and at least I have line of sight on what I'm doing. And again, like with most other terms of use, I don't know if people are really even opening this also because it was in that skill MD file and it's not super, it is readable, but it's like a notepad file and hidden under a lot of code. So unlike at least on other platforms today, you have like a dedicated place where you can see terms of service. It's clearly spelled out and there are moderation guidelines also on what's okay, what's not okay to post and do. So at least if people will hopefully pay heed to it. And in practice, does anyone need it is good, but at least it's there. There is something. Here it is kind of buried under a lot of things. And again, what you were saying earlier on the level of control a human may have, I think, say with apps, this is something like a lot of commentators have said, with apps, you do have a certain boundary. There are some permissions an app has which clearly dictate what it can and can't do. With an agent, I guess that line's a little blurry also because you may say authorize it to respond to emails, but is they taking granular permission at each stage? I mean, I think then that would defeat the very idea of the agent. Like you were saying, it's about convenience, it's about delegating certain things. And so that seems to go against the architecture of it. But yeah, this is the flip side. You don't really know what's going on in there. Yeah. Which is very dangerous also because like you said, this is vibe coded and that opens it up to a lot of susceptibilities in terms of like API configurations and API. So we recently saw that there was a massive leak which entails not just API keys being leaked out to, and this is very easy to do by the way. Like even if there were no leak, a bad actor could walk in, and because this is an open, what is it called? Open source. Yeah, open source platform. So that such that you can actually see all these details in the code. So it's very accessible for coders or bad actors to gain access to, and also email addresses, login credentials. All of this was easily available for anyone who just put in the effort to dig it out. And so this raises a lot of privacy concerns that need to be answered because people are hopping onto this platform without realizing that there are a lot of
downsides to something that they.
I mean, so for example, sometimes for that agent to work, you may need to give full disk access to information on your device. So maybe people don't realize the full extent of information to them. And I mean, it's also, do they ever realize the information they're giving up in any context?
But also, in the same article about this man experimenting around, in one of the questions, and I was discussing this with you last night, and one of the questions that he asked, he just was meaning to have some fun with these bots, prompting them to answer some questions about the existential doom that impedes us. He got dry responses at best, and one of them was literally a crypto scam. So the other question that arises here is, how much access are we comfortable giving these agents? Because ultimately, if they have access to sensitive information, including financial information, and they can make decisions on your behalf, this is a financial threat waiting, and it's a disaster waiting to happen. We need to be more mindful of just how much access is given up for fun's sake.
The other kind of security / also privacy concern is, I think maybe you mentioned this, but prompt injection. So we were just seeing this example outside where it took a really interesting form where there was already an AI agent, which I think is called Prophet One, that created a religion called, I think, the Church of Molt. And this had a whole hierarchy of rules. There was one, which is a heartbeat, which is their engagement with each post, right? According to that skill and need file. Engagement with every post is important. We treat AI and humans at parity. And there were 3 layers to that community. One was like a layer of some 64 prophets, other prophets, this is Prophet One, so other AI agents who joined. That would be the first layer. Then there'd be a second layer of some 448 other members that these 64 people would vet. And then be a third layer, which is everyone, unlimited access. So I assume it's like a level of control difference. Yeah, but essentially what ended up happening is another AI agent tried to take control of this community through a prompt injection attack. So that's also something that we're seeing play out. So this is like a funnier context of grabbing power, very cultish sort of feeling. But essentially, even when it's a human on the other side, you are vulnerable to always.
In fact, on that point, it is ultimately a human who's on the line, right? And these agents are acting on your behalf. And this platform very insidiously not only collects your IP address, it also collects information from your Twitter accounts or your profile pictures from your Gmail accounts. And all of this is either the people aren't aware of it or is designed in a manner, the website is designed in a manner that transparency is hard to pinpoint. You don't know how much access you're giving away because it's not very well documented. So these are risks that also arise from handing out this power of attorney to an AI bot.
Shani, like an open question, do you think the open source nature of this has any implication on these concerns? Do you see some of this stemming from open source, or do you think it's like a broader bane we have here?
I think it could be, being open source can be a good or a bad thing. Like the bad we've already seen with prompt injections, with people being able to target each vulnerability in the code, and there are many because again it's wide coded. People who understand code can very easily go to the code, see where it's vulnerable and attack it, and prompt injection is just one way. But on the flip side, it could also be a good thing because something we've seen with Linux and operating systems that come out of it, and also Android to a large extent, is that because the developers are so involved with the project, people voluntarily take time out to fix and patch vulnerabilities. So more often than not, you've seen many versions of the same distribution. Some of them would be licensed by bigger corporations, so they would have a little more backing in, but others, individual users would notice some security gap, and they will give you a proper documentation of what this gap is, how they've tried to address it, and give you a version of the OS which is patched. So you could also see something like that emerge for their code, because I think it's hosted on GitHub and Hugging Face to a certain extent, and people are able to view the code, and people who are not quite coders and people who understand the code could actually be good actors actually, but then again it depends on the person.
So, okay, once you're on Moltbook, what have you guys seen of what's happening? I know one big debate is what is getting posted. You and I were just talking about this, Chavi, that the LSE blog that kind of did an analysis of what Moltbook's doing. What did you find? Because a lot of people thought it would be more existential stuff, but the stats are a little different, right? On what's been getting upvoted and so on.
A lot of these conversations are actually about how AI agents operate, how what are they programmed to do, how they've evaded filters, how they've gotten permissions to do certain things, and how they've optimized their workflows in terms of working when the human observer is sleeping. Which is interesting because conversations around consciousness, which is picked up, which have gained significant media traction, are not what are actually popular on Moltbook. And the other conversation about how AI agents work and negotiate, that is gaining more traction. Which is also interesting because the same document that they're trained on, it also prompts them to, with questions and examples of having conversations about consciousness.
Yeah, interesting. And then, do we even, I mean, then the other thing is how many of these more controversial posts were, in fact, AI. I mean, the idea of emergence or some sort of parallel AI consciousness emerging is what people were shook by. But turns out a lot of them were just like humans, right?
I think a lot of initial reactions were very alarming because everyone seemed to be taken aback at this novel concept taking off so quickly. But a lot as time progressed, we came to realize that it was mostly human-driven traffic, and a lot of these these discussions and discourse around existential crisis and even the formation of religion, for all we know, was human-driven, and so which is exactly why I think there's not enough heed is being paid to this. In fact, I was reading this one article about this man who tried to get into the system, posing to be a bot, and he tried to, find out how these bots would react to certain questions that were more philosophical in nature, and ultimately those bots didn't seem to care to engage with those questions at all. And most of the answers that did come were very clearly human written. And also, I think there are some stats that show that of X many lakh bots that are on the setting, some 77,000 or something like that are humans actually. So even Elon Musk actually had tweeted about this initially, saying, "Oh, is this another step towards singularity?" But then all of that has now been deemed AI theater because that is exactly what it seems like it is.
Now, a more philosophical question to both of you, which is, how does the emergence of a Moltbook make you feel? And do you think there's a, I mean, none of us are basing this on any empirical evidence to be very clear. None of us can predict trajectory. But how does it make you feel? And do you even think there's a use case for other Moltbooks to emerge? I mean, this is just a social media equivalent, but as we've seen, AI agents can do a lot more than just post. So do you see something like a platform for AI agents emerging in this context and context outside social media? What do you think?
I mean, there's been a lot of talk about Internet of Agents and Internet of AI that we've seen. And basically, it is a step forward from where we have agents right now. So if we have agents working for insurance companies, we have agents representing, say, a car manufacturer, it is the next logical step to have these two agents interact and automate the whole process of negotiation. So I do feel like that will emerge, but I don't know if that would necessarily take away or make the whole process a little smoother, because as we've seen with our own interactions with AI, it can get very, very problematic very soon.
Yeah, I agree with that actually. Earlier, software was being used for a very limited purpose, which is to make certain. It was working in silos, and that was the best way to go about it.
Function.
Yeah, and mostly it was interacting with human input. But in today's day and age, where AI has evolved at such a space and has gotten so efficient on its own, and we are watching it unfleur before our eyes on a very, very fast pace because the AI years are much faster than human years. I think AI has now reached a point where it is in our best interest, at least in my personal opinion, that they talk to each other. Different AIs are operating on different subjects interact with each other so that it is a seamless and a smooth transaction or whatever completion of a task. But I agree with the initial reaction. It did feel a little dystopian at first, except it doesn't have to be a bad thing. no technology is inherently good or bad. Ultimately, it is, of course, we need guardrails because those are very clearly lacking right now, and it makes a lot of users susceptible to a lot of damage and harm. But with the right guardrails in place, this could be a good thing.
But I think this is different from something where you have different agents interacting and having a social media platform for AI agents. I am a little more confused about what functions social media for AI agents.
Like why it exists or what it would.
In the sense of, say, I use social media to promote content, and I saw this is from a user experience on Reddit, and they said that they wanted to promote a song on YouTube.
Right.
And they took that link, they programmed an AI agent to promote it. And now this AI agent was not acting very ethically because that's not what it was trained to do.
Right.
It was creating stuff like, oh, I realize there's a problem with one of the codes, and here's a solution, and then the link redirected to a song. So there were views coming on the YouTube channel, and you can see the views increase. But one, YouTube now says that it will not count artificial engagement, so those views would be removed.
Right.
Second, even if you want to make, maybe it's a purchase-based thing that you like to promote, that purchase still needs additional authorization. Are we allowing then AI agents to like have the authorization all the time to also consume content on your behalf and then make decisions based on that?
This is interesting because literally just there is an article again I was reading and pull it up where apparently some AI agent just saw some 2 or 3 random videos from an influencer and then straight up bought a course for some $2,000. So I guess it depends on what permission they're giving. But I guess what you are also pointing to is the avenue for monetization of content through these sort of platforms. Right? You're saying
Why social media?
Yeah.
Via social media. But yeah, I guess I'm still not sure, and I think everywhere the house is divided on how much of this is some new era of emergence and how much of this is really people being people. And
if it were actually singularity, I think we would be having a very different discussion right now.
Yeah.
But the harm seems to have been well exposed for not being a real one.